Okay, just a few more thoughts on technique and being relaxed. I'm going to show you some slow motion video in this little lesson, and you're going to see my wrist doing all these movements, and I want you to know that I am not doing these on purpose. What I mean by that is, years ago, I was 13 or 14, I saw Vinnie Colaiuta on the Zildjian Day New York video, and up until that point I played kind of French grip, finger style, thumb on the top. And I saw Vinny playing his ride cymbal on that video, and he was doing this. He had this gooseneck looking thing going on, like a swan. And I would stand in front of the mirror for hours trying to copy this exact motion. And then I felt like I was playing like Vinny because my arm was moving in a similar way. And years later, I kind of came to the realization that he's not putting his arm in all of these individual positions, he's just throwing his wrist at whatever it is that he's playing. So to kind of demonstrate why you can't do this slowly, you can't work on this slowly, the idea with this kind of molar stroke, this arm leading the wrist, leading the hand, is that it's like a wave. It's like you send a wave down a rope. So it starts at the shoulder, and then goes to the elbow, and then goes to the wrist, and then to the tip of the stick. And I'm not doing each of these things. You can kind of learn how the motion goes slowly, but in order to do that, you end up at this position with the wrist back, which you do go through when you play the stroke, but you're not putting your hand there. It just goes there by virtue of the fact that you've lifted your wrist up, and then you're going to throw it down quickly after that. So this is what I mean. If you try and do this slowly, you go like this, and your wrist is up, and your hand is relaxed, and the stick is down. If you just throw it down from there, it doesn't really do anything. The stick is not going to go higher than where you've lifted it to, because there's nothing to make it go higher. The motion from here is just down. So it doesn't really work. It only works when you start with an upward motion and then change the direction, because you're lifting your arm up and the stick is being lifted up, and then you change direction and the stick is still going up, now your arm is going down, and that's where that comes from. So all I'm doing is I'm thinking about lifting my wrist up and down. I'm not thinking about doing anything with my hand. I'm just lifting the wrist up and down pretty much from the elbow. There's a little bit of this going on, but you can do it just from the elbow. Just try and lift this up and down as if you had no control over your hand at all. And when the stick is in there, that's pretty much what happens. And then you get a bit more fine-grained control over that, but that's essentially what's going on. So the relaxing element of this, if you try and do this without the stick, if you relax your hand and you imagine you're flicking water off your fingers, you're just basically throwing your hand down, and you're not controlling any of your fingers or anything, you're just letting it be loose, then that's quite a natural and easy thing to do. Now if you squeeze your thumb and index finger like you would for a fulcrum, it's much more difficult to have a relaxed hand. When you've got tension in your hand, it's very hard to let it just be loose. So just try the difference between squeezing and throwing your arm about, and then letting it loose and throwing your arm about. Now you do that with a stick in your hand. If I squeeze and try and play this relaxed stroke, it kind of is doing it, but it doesn't feel very relaxed. Now I'm going to relax my whole hand, do the same thing. And that feels almost effortless. And I'm doing this a lot harder than I need to. You'll find that you can kind of do this very violently, or you can do it in a much more relaxed way, and you still get a loud stroke. So letting your hand be relaxed, realizing that you can't practice this slowly. You can't start here and do the downstroke on its own, because the way, the stick comes back here, this is where you get the power from, and the stick will only go back there if you started with an upward motion and then you translate into a downward motion. You can do it about this speed. That's about the slowest you can go with it. once you stop at the top, it's not going to work. So up, down, and just let your hand be relaxed. I'm doing literally nothing with my fingers here. They are touching the stick on the way down, and they're kind of coming in and out, but I'm not squeezing them. I'm just letting them be relaxed. So that is my tip for being relaxed here. And then the discovery I had the other night when I was on a gig is that to kill the bounce of the stick, I would typically squeeze the stick in with the back fingers at the end of the stroke. But that's quite a lot of effort. And if I do a slow-mo of me squeezing the stick in at the end versus letting my hand be relaxed and just letting it go back to where it wants to go, they don't look that much different. When I'm squeezing, it bounces up and comes down here pretty quickly, but it requires a lot of effort. When I'm relaxed, I just let my fingers be there. It comes back down a little slower, but it's way less effortful on my part. So this is how I get my backbeat, and it's how I'll start molar type things. It's all about being relaxed and realizing you can't practice it in slow motion.